Good afternoon or good evening, depending on what time you're watching this. I'm Chris Corrado. Welcome to another episode on Rock Hill Video. Our site is rockhillvideo.com. We talk a lot of politics on here. You've probably heard me say this a million times, and I'll keep on saying it. Whenever I bring my guests on, this is an open forum to share your thoughts on the topics, the matters at hand, and whatnot. A lot of people, you know, they'll bring people on shows and they'll bash them or praise them. We don't do that on my show. I don't bring anybody on here to argue with them. This isn't about my opinion. I might be hosting it, but it's about the guest on the show to feel very comfortable to talk about the issues and say whatever they got to say. There's no judgment. If I did bring somebody on, say, to debate someone, once again, it's not about me versus the one person or me with the other person versus the one person to talk over them or give them extra time to talk. I feel a good code of ethics of somebody who studied journalism that, you know, the news is the news. You should report the facts and let people speak for themselves without bashing them or talking over them when they're trying to get a point. So tonight, this Monday night, we're going to talk with Shannon Bray. So Shannon, thank you for being on our show tonight.
Yep, absolutely.
So, you know, just to get started, what would you like to share with us about, you know, your family life, upbringing, etc.?
Sure. I was born and raised in South Louisiana. Grew up down the bayou. After graduating from Thibodeau High, it's one of those words we were talking about before the show. I went to college, but I went to college fairly early. I ended up skipping a grade or two. And then when I went to college, I really wasn't quite ready for the college experience. So I ended up going into the Navy and, you know, having a pretty decent career there as a submariner, diver, and really kind of enjoyed it. That's one of the, in fact, my service is one of the reasons why I decided to run, with Veteran Services being, you know, on my platform. But then, you know, once I got out of the Navy, it was either go commercial diving or into information technology. I had my first computer when I was 8. It was a Timex Sinclair 1000. It was flat keys, had a tape deck, and I just spent hours on it. But, you know, all that time that I spent on it as a kid really kind of translated to an adult. You know, now that I write computer software, work in cybersecurity, and, you know, that's where I've been for the last 20 years, working in information technology. I'm an author, speaker, you know, and worked on a number of high-profile projects for the government.
Oh, wow. I'm
a, you know, father of 3. We have a blended family. I brought the 2 girls. My wife brought the boy. We live in Apex, North Carolina. You know, my kids all, you know, go to the school systems here, and, you know, education is pretty important to us because we all want to have great kids that are able to flourish in the world. Awesome.
Well, I always appreciate it, you know, to have folks on who served in the military. So thank you for doing that for our great country. Okay. So what do you want people to know about you? Whether it be as a person, as somebody who wants to be an elected official, any misconceptions you want to clear up?
Well, I mean, the biggest misconception is that I ran out of some ego trip, which is kind of what I'm hearing now. Here in North Carolina, it was a razor-thin margin. As it sits right now, in fact, the race hasn't even been called yet, and we're almost a full week after the election. Tom Tillis has about 100,000 vote lead over Cal Cunningham, but I came in roughly at 168,000, so I covered the spread. Before the election, Republicans were emailing me, giving me their mind. After the election, they sent thank you letters, and then the Democrats started emailing me, giving me their mind. And a lot of it was, if I hadn't run, their candidate would have won. And that's the biggest misconception, I think, that I've really kind of noticed. People just assume that my voters were their candidate's voters. And it's not necessarily true. They don't necessarily have gone to the Democrats or the Republicans. There's a lot of people who actually voted for me. They were first-time voters and they never participated. And they were energized by me, or they were energized by Spike, and they were energized by Joe. And so this is what got them politically motivated. Now, there's undoubtedly some people who were registered Republican or Democrat that may have voted for me, but I didn't steal those votes. You know, I earned those votes. It was a scandal that Cal Cunningham had that probably pushed more people away, or the lack of a good job that Tom Tillis had done originally. But when you really look at like the data aspects of it, with how Trump did, how Joe did, and then also how Biden did, you know, it really kind of looks more like to me that we probably trimmed off more of the Republican votes than we did the Democratic votes. But, you know, with that being said, I'm going to run again, and all the nasty emails and phone calls I get aren't going to deter me, because it's my right to do that, and it's my right to represent the people who value their liberty. We don't have to pick and be members of the duopoly, being a Republican or a Democrat, because there's a lot of people out there that don't identify with either of those parties. I mean, I grew up as a Republican, and there's some Republican values that I cherish, but there's also some Democratic ones that I cherish as well. So ideally, you know, a libertarian is someone who's actually in the middle of the aisle. And when we have two parties that are as divisive that they are, and keep getting further and further apart, we need more people who can actually play in the middle, work with both sides, and actually bring some commonality and some common sense to politics. Because when you look at it, you have like a Republican, if they say my favorite color is red, then that's probably a bad color, because obviously the Dems will say I don't like red. But, you know, no matter what you do, it automatically draws a line in there, and people just want to fight about it. Well, as a libertarian, you know, we're kind of in that middle. So no matter who was elected, with Trump, I see some positive things with the Supreme Court. You know, maybe they'll roll back some gun legislation in California, New York, and New President. Maybe we'll get criminal justice reform or decriminalization of marijuana or anything like that. So depending on who's in office, there's always a benefit for where we can move forward. So it's not necessarily I hate that guy or I hate this guy, because running as a politician, you know, I'm going to have to work with whoever is on those aisles. So I don't want to alienate the people that I'm going to represent just because one party or another. Now, a lot of people know that, you know, I've been anti-Trump, but it wasn't necessarily because of his policies. It was more because of the rhetoric. And, you know, now that, you know, I don't know if officially it's been called. I think it has. I haven't really been online. Well, I haven't really been watching TV most of the day. You know, I think it's probably, you know, going to go Biden's way if it hasn't already. So it's just kind of important that people realize that there are people out there that don't fit the mold of Democrats and Republicans. And just because there's a third or fourth party running on that ticket doesn't mean they stole your votes. Sometimes they generate their own. And even if they do, it's not really someone else's place to say, hey, you shouldn't have ran, you ruined the political system. Because you're more than able to get up and run yourself. So as long as people are voting for their principles, I think that the world is a better place. Now, your principles might be Republican or they might be Democratic. But for me, you know, it's about personal liberty. And for the people that I represented, it's about personal liberty.
Okay. So when you hear things like, oh, you know, libertarians, those are just angry white Republican guys who want to smoke pot, you know, that's something you would disagree with?
Well, I'm not angry. I'm white. I'm for the legalization of marijuana, and I like guns. So there's more to us than that. Okay. You know, while that might be checks that, you know, check plenty of people off, you know, we're also looking for criminal justice reform. We believe that all men are created equal. We don't want to see, you know, gerrymandering that skews votings and lines like that. We want fair elections We want people to be treated well. We want, equal rights for the gay community. So, just in that sentence alone, I had Republican values because I don't like to be taxed a whole lot. In fact, I'd rather not be taxed at all. That was, one of my least favorite amendments in the Constitution, is the 16th Amendment that gave the government the power to, to tax us. So it's really easy for me to spend some time with someone, talk politically, and I immediately identify what's important to them and then have some commonalities, no matter who they are.
Okay. So you might also hear things about libertarians. Yeah, they just show up every 4 years to run for president. They need to start tackling the local elections and state and local government. Would you say you definitely have proven that to be wrong by what you did?
Yeah. Well, I plan on running in 2022, so I'm not just showing up for the 4-year cycle, but I actually believe 2022 might even be better for the Libertarian Party because we made so much ground this time, even though we were in a divisive election. It amazed me that I got over 168,000 votes when there were so many pro-Trump and anti-Trump people. It's easy for someone to say, oh, I don't want to waste my vote. This one's too important. We hear that all the time. And this time, 168,000 people said, you know what? I'm tired of people telling me I'm wasting my vote, and I'm going to go cast it for someone, even if they're not going to win. I'm voting my principles.
Okay. So you, like I said, you went against Cunningham and Tillis. What seat was that? What was that?
The U.S. Senate for the state of North Carolina.
U.S. Senate, okay.
It basically was one of the seats tied with Georgia that's going to give the Senate control. So it's heated. And I have a buddy in Georgia who ran. Shane, he covered the spread, same thing. Social media has not been very kind to him lately, but we're both tough birds, right? It's the whole sticks and stones, and most of the stuff that people say aren't very smart anyway. They don't understand the political landscape and where votes come from, or even how the electoral process works. So it's not like I'm taking these insults and having a tough time sleeping at night.
Got it. So you're saying that race still hasn't been called yet, but overall, how do you feel about it?
I'm tickled pink with the amount of love I got from North Carolina voters in an election that was this divisive is an amazing accomplishment. I broke the libertarian record in the state of North Carolina for both state and federal votes. So that's huge. So to me, we're working forward, and I'm looking to double that number in 2022, which if I actually double that number in 2022 with a number of people who don't actually participate in those off cycles, I can win. So, now it's time to start hitting the road already, start a fundraising, make that debate stage, and then actually pull those numbers again. And then I can see myself in Washington.
Got it. Okay. So what do you feel that you'll need to do differently, and what do you feel you'll need to do that's the same?
Well, the one thing that I did rather well, I think, is I was on social media and I interacted with everyone, whether they liked me or not. Every email I got, I responded to if they gave me a legit email address. I tried to answer every phone call I could. If they left a message, I always called back. And other than that, I ran a one-man campaign. Now, the one thing that I have to change is I have to raise enough money now. During the last cycle, I was invited to the debates. I was supposed to be on the debate stage with Tillis and Cunningham, but then right before the debate, I was disinvited. And the reason why they said was I didn't raise enough money. Well, I only raised $400 by design. I am strongly against campaign finance issues like the other two have. So I wanted to see how good I can do on a limited budget. I gave myself $1,000 to play with. And, to come in even under that kind of shows me that And with the number of votes I got, that's pretty powerful. Had I actually had a couple $1,000,000 when the news broke, when our Democrat senator was busted sleeping with a veteran's wife and all the scandals he had, and then the people who don't like our Republican one, that would have been the optimal time to come out with a commercial and say, hey, there's a third option. But unfortunately, I wasn't positioned to do that. But next time I certainly will be.
Got it. Okay, thank you. So we learned a little bit about your political affiliation and your party. Is there anything else you want to share that's different about the Libertarian Party as opposed to Democrats, Republicans, Green Party, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, Libertarians many people still don't even know what the Libertarian Party is. They might hear about it, but then it begins with liberal, so they don't know if it's, a Democratic Party or whatnot. But the thing that I think is most important for people to realize is the power of the third party vote. If you live in the state of Texas, right, that state's going to be red.
Oh, yeah.
Now, sorry, the Democrats in Texas and the Democrats in Louisiana, that state's red. California, the exact opposite. You can be a Republican there, and that state's going to be blue. So the one thing that might be important for those states that never really become swing states is if you're unhappy with the government or the duopoly powers, is actually vote third party. Third party votes aren't wasted because what that does is it actually puts the candidate or the party, they get certain percentages. And once you break 5% or 15%, depending on the race, then you're included in funding, and you're included in the debates, and you're included in a number of things that you get excluded from. So if you don't think your candidate's going to win, voting third party is a great way to kind of say, hey, I'm voicing my opinion and I would like to have other options.
Got it. Okay. What else would you like to share about the 2020 election, whether it be in your state, the presidency, Congress, anything else you want to share that we didn't talk about?
Well, a lot of people think the world is over. Here's kind of the way that I look at it. We have a conservative Supreme Court, and we have, at least right now, we have a conservative Senate with a Democratic president and a Democratic House. There's a lot of gridlock there. But gridlock is really helpful to the process, because now you're not going to get steamrolled by laws that you really can't stomach. And the benefit of the Supreme Court nomination, although I didn't see it at the time, is that now that's going to help protect some of the Second Amendment rights. And now they can't necessarily, the Democratic Party can't necessarily come in and court pack because the Senate's there to kind of stop that. So it's going to keep that equilibrium in place and not overskew some of the laws or whatnot. So hopefully people start working in the middle. Hopefully the rhetoric and the name calling and all of that, dies down, and people realize that, it's just politics, and, it's time to figure out what you actually value, find a candidate who shares those values, and then vote for them that way instead of just picking an R or a D.
Got it. So when it comes to this past election, any concerns that people might have that our country is going to become a socialist or communist country, or women, or black people, Hispanics, nobody's going to lose their rights or anything like that?
No, I don't think people are going to lose their rights. I mean, we do have a conservative Supreme Court now. I'm interested to see how gay rights kind of plays out. I'm hoping that the Democratic leads will push forward there. You may have some pushback there in the Supreme Court with some of that, but hopefully all that gets put to bed. Roe versus Wade might be a contention point. Hopefully they leave that alone. As a libertarian, we want the federal government completely out of our lives. So, we don't need extra federal laws telling us how to act. I think we're all smart enough how to govern our own lives. We don't need the government in here dictating what they expect us to do when we're quite capable of doing that ourselves.
Okay. Yeah, I meant to bring that up too. A woman's right to choose whether she wants to have an abortion. A lot of the libertarians I talk to, they're very split on that. There's some pro-life, some pro-choice, but all of them seem to, or for the most part, agree that you should leave Roe v. Wade alone because, once again, they don't want the government being involved in that.
Yeah, personally, I'm pro-life, but policy-wise, I'm pro-choice by design, because I don't want to have laws that the federal government puts out that's going to remove that right for a woman, her family, and her doctor to make those decisions. Now, on the flip side, I do actually support funding of birth control and IUDs and anything to kind of stop the whole abortion topic from even coming into play. To me, would be a winning opportunity, even though I'm a libertarian and I don't necessarily like government funding that way. It mitigates a lot of that risk, and to me, it's a good middle ground.
Got it. Thank you. Would you say that a thought process behind libertarians really is, you can go ahead and ban things, but you're really not doing any good, because all you're really doing is basically creating a black market for things, and crime will just rise?
Right. I mean, and we saw that with Reagan and the drug war, right? And then you won't necessarily have the black market if everything was legal. And just because it's legal doesn't mean everyone's going to go out and do it. I mean, there's plenty of people who don't drink. They legalized marijuana in Colorado, and well, let's say depending on where you live in Colorado, some of it's up in smoke. But Oregon, Washington, it doesn't mean that everyone's going to just go out and do it. What it really helps is it stops the minorities from being thrown in jail on a stupid drug charge and them getting 20 years because they broke probation or something, and their whole crime didn't even have necessarily a victim in it. And it gets abused. It gets abused by our political powers. It gets abused by our law enforcement. So if we had the decriminalization aspects of that and actually help people, use that as an opportunity to say, hey, maybe you should, either get off of it, do it better, or whatever, and not throw somebody's entire life away for 20 years off of, a drug charge.
Got it. Okay. So what are your plans for 2022 that we might not have talked about yet?
2022, I'm going to come out swinging. I'm going to run the same platform. I'm running as a libertarian, even though some people suggest that I should run as a Republican. I feel like I'd be turning my back on the people that really came out to support me here. So one of the things that I'm going to be doing is just really looking at fundraising, become a little bit more visible after the race. I've had several news outlets reach out, and I've done more TV since the election than I did in the 2 years before. So I think the libertarian message is going to resonate a little bit with more people. And, it's my job to speak as openly and honestly as I can so that people can either identify with me or hate me. But then if they identify with me, then they feel like they have somebody that they can support. Because there's nothing better than casting your vote for someone you actually like, believe in, and trust. So many times we're there picking the lesser of two evils, and we don't always have to do that. If we have that third and fourth option, you can find somebody who actually gives a damn, and not just looking for the corruption of power.
Got it. Thank you. Shannon, where can our viewers learn more about you?
Well, the best place to learn about me is to get on Twitter, Shannon Bray NC, and to talk to me directly. Ask me questions, shoot me DMs, be as nice or as nasty as you want to be. I don't really care. I also have an email address, shannonbraync@gmail.com. But I also have the website at shannonbray.us that that people can go to as well.
And Shannon is spelled S-H-A-N-N-O-N, Bray, B-R-A-Y. Okay. Well, we talked about a lot today. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you wanted to bring up, whether it be about libertarianism, you in politics, you in your personal life, anything else?
But really, the only thing that I don't think that we talked about is on my platform, I ran for cybersecurity, right? And that's everything. Election security and protecting personal data and personal privacy, and having some of those laws that we do need that will penalize people who commit fraud and steal, behind a keyboard. There's not very good. So when you look at what Zuckerberg did to Congress, right? He went there and he made them all look like a bunch of idiots. They didn't know what questions to ask. They don't understand the platforms. They don't understand how social media works. They don't understand data privacy. They don't understand anything. So they're sitting there trying to have dialogue with a man, and they were clearly being schooled. We need to have more people who understand data architectures and privacy, and get them in play so that we can actually protect the citizens of this country, very much like the GDPR does for the people in the EU.
I'm glad you brought that up. Let me look something up. So I don't know if you've seen, a lot of people want to leave Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram and go to something called Parlor.
Parlor, yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
I've heard a lot of bad reviews on Parlor. I just signed up myself last week, I think. Haven't really done much with it. I went through the verification process to prove that I am who I am. But as of right now, as far as I know, I've got 0 posts, 0 followers. I'm not following anyone. So it's the big, triple O's. Twitter, I think, at least from the libertarian standpoint, has got an excellent community. And, I just started libertarian Twitter like 3 or 4 months ago. And, there's people all over the country, whether they're candidates or constituents or politicians, or people, movie stars, they're all interacting, on the libertarian Twitter aspect. And we have excellent conversations. I had a conversation with quite a few people just on their unhappiness with the duopoly, and a lot of them are very high-profile people. Okay.
Yeah, the reason why when you brought up a little bit about social media, just kind of gave me that one idea for one more question, just because of the tweet from AOC. Is anyone archiving these Trump, I don't know if I'm saying this word right, Sycophants, sycophants? Am I saying that word right?
I'm not sure. That's not a word that I think I used it at all.
For when they try to downplay or deny their complicity in the future, I foresee decent probability of many deleted tweets, writings, photos in the future.
You delete a tweet, there's a site that keeps track of all of that. Okay. Because I deleted a tweet just because I had a misspelling in it, and then when I was doing an internet search trying to find out, what's going on, what people are saying about me and stuff, I happened to find, those deleted tweets. So once you hit the send button, that stuff is archived. Okay. So there's no need to necessarily do that. Okay. Because that tweet, they really last for 2 weeks, and they fall out. So you don't necessarily have to go back and delete them anyway. Okay. Because I understood what she was trying to state in this tweet, but I hadn't seen this word before. That's why I was asking. Okay. Okay, so that doesn't really matter. It's already being done anyway. Yeah, and that's just her stirring the pot some more. Okay. Hopefully both parties kind of relax a little bit, take a chill pill, and let's just get back to loving our neighbor, versus saying, oh, you were a Trump fan and I was a Biden fan, or she's a Biden. All of that doesn't matter. we all want to live in a world where we kind of make our own personal rules and we don't have that influence from the government. So, now's the perfect time to, A, find the disgruntled people and, invite them over to the Libertarian Party. And, B, start working on positive messaging instead of, stuck in the rhetoric.
Got it. Okay. Well, Shannon, I appreciate you coming on the show tonight.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is, Monday, November 9th, 2020, 8:16 p.m. I'm Chris Corrado. Please continue watching our show. If you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. My email is corrado81@gmail.com. That's CORRADO81@gmail.com. Everyone's welcome on this show. It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, Green Party, Independent. You are welcome to come on the show, whether it be just you and I having a conversation, or I've had some debates on here too, friendly debates where everyone gets their chance to say what they have to say. I always encourage people debating to just have a pen and a paper. That way you don't have to worry about screaming over somebody to get your point out. Just write it down and we'll get to you. But that's what we have for tonight. Like I said, I'm Chris Corrado. Now a word from our sponsors.